Welcome back to week 9 of the 2020 SSG Emphasis Program, brought to you by Safety Consulting Now, a full-scale online safety training platform that is designed to help the competent employees and trainers of your operation to facilitate OSHA-required training topics at your location in a way that goes far beyond a boring PowerPoint presentation and some generic safety video from 2001. We build in discussion questions, stories, and analogies that resonate with workers, and quizzes that are designed to reinforce what they learned, not scare them off. And yes, they can be watched solo, but they are designed to be facilitated. So, if you're looking to up your internal safety training game, I encourage you to check out the great things we're doing at training.safetyconsultingnow.com. And please reach out to me directly if you'd like to set up a quick web conference where I can walk you through the site. You can do that at jakew@summitsafetygroup.com. And I will get back with you right away. All right, on to the topic for this week, emergency action plans. There's a lot to unpack these next few weeks as it relates to your EAP program, and I promise you that you'll learn a lot from this video on what OSHA expects and how you can better be prepared at your facility or job site. I will quickly add that the next video is solely geared towards those contractors of ours that perform field work. There are a lot of misconceptions about emergency action plans for construction related activities, and I'm here to clear those up. All right, let's get into it. An emergency action plan, or EAP, is a written document required by the OSHA standard found in 1910.38a when any type of emergency situation is required. Let me make this easy for you. If you have any flammables, chemicals, or the opportunity for hazardous weather or a violent intruder, you need an emergency action plan. Now, the main purpose of this plan is to facilitate and organize employer and employee actions during workplace emergencies. We know, and OSHA knows, that if this type of plan is constructed and then trained on, the survival rate in an actual emergency goes up tremendously. So, quickly, let's cover the minimum requirements of your emergency action plan. First things first, you need to conduct a workplace assessment that searches for any and all possible emergencies, and then describe in as much detail as possible how you expect your employees to respond to these different types of emergencies. Of course, taking into account the specific layout of your site, structural features, and emergency systems. Most organizations find it beneficial to include both management and employees in the assessment phase of this planning process, and to meet frequently to review progress and allocate development tasks. Now, if you're watching this and you have 10 or fewer employees, you don't need a written plan, and you are allowed to communicate these procedures orally as found in 1910.38b. However, make sure you capture that verbal training in writing and have all of your employees sign off that they understand the procedures. So, back to the minimum plan requirements. It must meet the following elements as found in 1910.38c. Means of reporting fires and other emergencies, evacuation procedures and emergency escape route assignments, procedures for employees who remain to operate critical plant operations before they evacuate, accounting for all employees after an emergency evacuation has been completed, and then rescue and medical duties for employees performing them, as well as names or job titles of persons who can be contacted. Before we get into the other elements, I don't want to rush past these 6 minimum requirements. I want to walk you through each one so you can ensure you meet the expectations of these standards. Number 1, the reporting of emergencies. Dialing 911 is a common method for reporting emergencies if external emergency personnel are used at your workplace, but internal numbers may be used for reporting emergencies. If they are, they should be posted on or near each phone. Internal numbers sometimes are connected to intercom systems so that a coded announcement may be made. In some cases, employees are requested to activate manual pull stations or other alarm systems. No matter what system you choose to use, it's imperative that emergency situations be immediately reported to first responders. Once an emergency that requires a response from employees is reported, a system, typically an alarm system, must be in place to notify all of your employees. Alarms must be distinctive and recognized by all employees as a signal to evacuate the work area or perform other actions identified in your EAP. The alarm must be capable of being perceived above ambient noise and light levels. Sequences of horn blows or different types of alarms, such as bells or horns, can be used to signal different emergencies or required actions from employees. Ideally, the alarms will be able to be heard, seen, or otherwise perceived by everyone in the workplace, including those who may be blind or deaf. Otherwise, designated employees should be tasked with ensuring all employees are notified. You might want to consider providing an auxiliary power supply to your alarm system in the event of an electrical failure. You might also consider making available an emergency communication system, such as a public address system for broadcasting emergency information to employees. Okay, number 2, evacuation policies, procedures, and escape route assignments are put into place so that employees understand who is authorized to order an evacuation, under what conditions an evacuation would be necessary, how to evacuate, and what routes to take. Exit diagrams are typically used to identify the escape routes to be followed by employees from each specific facility location. I also want to remind you that this is why blocked exits will always be noted on your audits when your SSG consultant is at your site. We realize emergencies don't happen often, but in the event of an emergency, you have to be fully prepared, and that means having your exit routes ready at all times. Evacuation procedures also often describe actions employees should take before and while evacuating, such as shutting windows, turning off equipment, and closing doors behind them. Sometimes a critical decision may need to be made when planning, whether or not employees should fight a small fire with a portable fire extinguisher or simply evacuate. Portable fire extinguishers may be integrated into the emergency action plan as well. We also want this section to cover specific evacuation procedures for high-rise buildings, whether they be in the process of construction or an existing structure. Procedures for assisting visitors and employees to evacuate, particularly those with disabilities or who do not speak English. A means of accounting for employees after an evacuation, and depending on the hazard you have at your site, your employees may need personal protective equipment to evacuate during an emergency. This PPE may include the basic PPE like safety glasses and hard hats, but also proper respirators, chemical suits, gloves, hoods, and boots for body protection from chemicals, and special body protection for abnormal environmental conditions such as extreme temperatures. Okay, number 3. Addressing employees who remain to shut down critical operations before evacuating. We know that certain equipment and processes must be shut down in stages or over time. In other instances, it's not possible or practical for equipment or certain process to be shut down under certain emergency situations. This condition, which is not unusual for certain large manufacturers operating complex processes, is not typical of small enterprises that normally can turn off equipment or utilities if necessary and then evacuate. However, some small enterprises may require designated employees to remain behind briefly to operate fire extinguishers or shut down gas and or electrical systems and other special equipment that could be damaged if left operating or create additional hazards to emergency responders, such as releasing hazardous materials. Each employer must review their operation and determine whether total and immediate evacuation is possible for various types of emergencies. The preferred approach, and the one most often taken, is immediate evacuation of all their employees when the evacuation alarm is sounded. If any employees will stay behind, the plan must describe in detail the procedures to be followed by these employees. All employees remaining behind must be capable of recognizing when to abandon the operation or task and evacuate themselves before their egress path is blocked. In small establishments, it is common to include in your plan locations where utilities, such as electrical and gas, can be shut down for all or part of the facility, either by your own employees or by emergency response personnel. But again, this has to be a detailed plan and can't be putting your employees in harm's way to stay in imminent danger. Okay, the 4th minimum requirement is accounting for employees after an evacuation. To ensure the fastest and most accurate accountability of your employees, we encourage you to include these steps in your emergency action plan. Number 1, designate assembly areas or areas both inside and outside of your workplace where employees should gather after evacuating. Assembly locations within the building are often referred to as areas of refuge. Make sure your assembly area has sufficient space to accommodate all of your employees. Exterior assembly areas used when the building must be partially or completely evacuated are typically located in parking lots or other open areas away from busy streets. Try and designate assembly areas so that you will be upwind of your building from the most most common or prevailing wind direction. Number 2, take a head count after the evacuation. Identify the names and last known locations of anyone not accounted for and pass them to the official in charge. Accounting for all employees following evacuation is critical. Confusion in the assembly area can lead to delays in rescuing anyone trapped in the building or unnecessary and dangerous search and rescue operations. When designated an assembly area, consider and try to minimize the possibility of employees interfering with rescue operations. Number 3, establish a method for accounting for non-employees such as suppliers and customers. Number 4, establish procedures for further evacuation in case the incident expands. This may consist of sending employees home by normal means or providing them with transportation to an off-site location. On to the 5th minimum requirement of rescue and medical duties for employees performing them. Unless you're a large employer handling hazardous materials and processes or have employees regularly working in hazardous situations, you will probably choose to rely on local public resources to provide these specialized services. If you choose to use external departments or agencies such as the local fire department and police departments, medical clinics or hospitals, and ambulance services, make sure they are prepared to respond as outlined in your plan. For example, have members of the local fire department conduct a walkthrough of your workplace so they are familiar with the layout and any potential hazards. Establish a relationship with local ambulance services so transportation is readily available for emergencies. Make arrangements with nearby medical clinics or other facilities to handle emergency cases and to provide medical and first aid services to employees. Now, this is a big one. If a clinic or hospital is not close to your work site, ensure that on-site employees have adequate first aid training. Don't forget, this is something we at Summit Safety Group can provide you with and is required when treatment of a serious injury must begin within 3 to 4 minutes of the accident. Although the OSHA standards do not prescribe a number of minutes, OSHA has long interpreted the term near proximity to mean that emergency care must be available within no more than 3 to 4 minutes from the workplace. This is an interpretation that has been upheld by the Occupational Safety and Health Review Commission and by federal courts. So again, let us help you with that and get your teammates trained and prepared to help each other when they need it most. All right, so look, there's a lot to unpack here, but as I said in the beginning, if you create this plan and train on this plan, you'll be well prepared to execute this plan in an emergency and will also pass an OSHA inspection. Now, regarding next week, I want to get into the contractor-specific requirements found in 1926.50A. We always get a lot of questions regarding first aid or emergency-related situations on your job sites, and I want to make sure you know exactly what's expected. With that, I'm Jake Wolfenden with Summit Safety Group and Safety Consulting Now, and I'll see you in the next one.